Good morning and God bless ELAR teachers across Texas and the United States. Today, I want to focus on 3 questions that got the lowest percent correct on the revising portion of the test. Now, I'm wearing my glasses uh, because I had to revise my viewing. I had to upgrade my lenses to these. I only got them from the Dollar Tree to save money. But when you do revising, you're improving the content. So if you think of revising as there's a passage that looks a certain way now, when you're revising it, you're improving the way it looks later. So if you think of the candy now and later, revision is basically that, changing the content by adding, removing, replacing, or moving one word, one phrase, one sentence, one transition, combining sentences. I'll show you that. But we're going to look at the 3 that got the lowest score in today's video and give you some strategies that will hopefully add tools to your revising toolbox for you and your students. Let's take a close look at the lowest question for revising for 4th grade. It said, RULES is what I do my checklist, and I'll make sure I put a link in the comment section so that if you like my checklist and my process of elimination, it'll be available to you. We're going to read in 2 places, loudly or softly, the question and back in the passage. We'll underline and label, mark the test in both places. So those of you that have those no red marks on papers, well, whatever color you use, just make sure you do some labeling. That's all I think is important. Marking the test so that you can share with your teacher and yourself what's going through your mind, your thought process as you're reading the question, the answer choices, and how they compare to the response to the passage. Once you're ready, you'll eliminate 3 answers, the ones that you feel are the least appropriate, and you'll select one in both the book and in the Scantron, where you will submit a response in a computer. So let's go ahead and do step 1, and let me show you. There is my rules acronym for editing and revising. And if you can think of a checklist, or at least this one, like a meal, the R rules would be the appetizer, the U, the meat, the L and the E would be the vegetables, and the S would be dessert. So if you're that kind of person that likes to motivate students by giving them rewards, make sure they don't get the dessert, the reward, the candy, the sweets, the dessert, whatever it is that you think will encourage them and motivate them to follow your strategies if they do all the way through. Okay. Why are those pictures there? Because we're going to look at the passage. We're going to say the question out loud, either SO softly or LO loudly, so that we can hear and listen to how it sounds or doesn't sound. We're going to think in our brain what strategy our teacher has taught us. And then because it's reading, editing, or revising, we are able to open a book called the Dictionary or Thesaurus. Then we'll write the right answer after going through this checklist. So there's the rules, and we'll look at the other side of that in a moment. It says, what is the best way to revise sentence 15? Okay, revise is one of the lowest level questions, but it got the lowest percent correct. And I think we're misunderstanding what revising means. All we're doing, you look at my graphic organizer. A lot of you use arms. I use arm. There's an arm to a hand, and we're adding, removing, replacing, or moving content around. Notice that this bracelet on the arm is near the bottom. The lower the level the word or phrase is on the arm, the easier the question should be. When they say for revision, all they were doing was asking you change the order of the words in the sentence, move them around so that you can find the one that is most effective or written the best way. And so you are going to have to do what many of you call a process of elimination. So instead of reading the entire passage, since they're only asking me about sentence 15, in these lower level ones, you don't need to read an entire paragraph or passage. You just need to read the sentence. So let's go look at, notice that I did two things so far. I underlined best way, revise, and I made a little bracket around sentence 15, and I wrote question 6. And that is to make sure that nobody goes to sentence 6 to revise it. We're going to revise, make sentence 15 look better later than it does right now. So sentence 15, as we go back, I've already labeled it in the passage. Question number, what was it? It was question number 6. So it's called by many of you proving your answer to your teacher. So I've highlighted it. You can also bracket it. Okay. So as I'm reading, even though this is editing, fixing content, it'll probably help me to practice editing skills as I'm reading by verbalizing what I'm seeing. So if you watch me and listen at the same time, capital first, comma, that's an introductory phrase that's saying when, first, comma, bouncing a ball, a shorter bounce for a shorter pause. She drew a bright painting, comma, where she drew pink flowers, comma, ladybugs, comma, and a butterfly period. So there's commas in a series. She drew 3 things, pink flowers, comma, ladybugs, comma, and conjunction, a butterfly period, a longer pause. If you'll notice, I drew some red bricks around she drew and she drew. Whenever there's repetition, that's not the best way to write something. And when we looked at the answers did say one of them, sentence 15 does not need to be revised. I'm going to eliminate that because you never want to pick one that has repetition. So this is where we have to look and see the different letter choices. Is there one that writes the sentence better later, which is these choices, without repeating? Capital, comma, first she drew a bright painting, comma, short pause, drawing pink flowers, comma, ladybugs, comma, and a butterfly, period. Because the repetition is still there on drew and drawing, different forms of the word drew, I'm going to make a little X over here because I would not want to pick something that repeats unless that's the only choice that's the best. Letter G, capital, first, comma, short pause. She drew a bright painting, written one time, with pink flowers, comma, ladybugs, comma, and a butterfly, period. So that one is telling the reader what was drawn. So I have all the puzzle pieces. I just didn't repeat any of the puzzle pieces. So I think that that might be the correct answer. Let's look at the letter H. Capital, first comma, introductory phrase. This is called an optional comma because you could write first she drew because the phrase is so short. It's not required. She drew a bright painting, comma. The painting, repetition, had bright pink flowers. So because of two reasons, painting, painting, and the run-on that starts right there, instead of slowing the sentence down with a comma, they should have stopped it with a period. And then that would have made it correct. They could have said, first she drew a painting, period. It had, capital, it had bright pink flowers, comma, ladybugs, and also a butterfly. Because of the run-on and the repetition, we would eliminate letter H. We've already eliminated letter J. So the answer we're going to select, because it's the only one we have a question mark, it's the best one. Letter G, cross off H, J, and F. Put the G again next to it. And then for kids practicing bubbling this year on Scantrons, they can practice their bubbling so that we've pretended to select the answer in the book and the Scantron. And as I've mentioned, always place your letter you're going to choose next to your number so that they match. Now, let me show you what's going to help some of your students. When this is on the back side of the rules, and if you look in the comment section, I have it where you can get it for your classroom use. Use Mrs. PVC to help you with the process of elimination in your editing and revising in this room. That was a lot of things to remember. So if you get a class set of these, you can laminate them. And the M is anything missing that's supposed to be there. That is the meaning changed, then I'm going to eliminate. When I look at it carefully, if I find repetition or a run-on, I'm going to eliminate. And if you look at her hair on both sides, you see lots of E's. The things we're going to eliminate on all the odd answers and eliminate 3 on all the even. And again, we're listening very carefully. So I turn question marks and I turn to ears into question marks. S, is there a subject in the sentence? Is the answer choice specific? If not, then you have to eliminate. This person, Mrs. PVC, has only 4 fingers on purpose to remind you we have to eliminate red 3 and select only 1. PVC, that's the pipe that you use that you can listen to your essay with. Everyone is allowed to use those. You just put a little elbow on one end and a little elbow on the other, and it allows you to whisper very softly and hear the essay. That's where the softly part can come in on test day when you're testing solo. If the predicate is missing or the point of view is unnecessarily changed, you have to eliminate that choice. Does the verb tense change or is the response too vague? Eliminate. If there's a content change or any regular cups error, such as capitalization, usage, punctuation, or spelling, then we eliminate. And so the green part is make sure you compare the question to the passage. And in this case, we read the question first and then the passage. Yes, in the alphabet, P comes before Q, but for some kids who struggle, let's read a sentence called the question before we read a passage that's a bunch of paragraphs together. So since our third most missed was on the same page, I'll go ahead and stay there for you. There's our rules. We read in both places, underline, label, eliminate, and select. Jake has included an unnecessary, not necessary sentence in the second paragraph, sentences 5 through 9. So if you look at my hand here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, or I can do it this way. Sorry. Uh, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's a whole paragraph we're going to have to look at. And so those are hard. I don't have to read the entire passage, but I do have to read 5 sentences. But only half of the students in Texas got this question correct. Which sentence should be deleted from this paragraph? So if you look at the top portion of my revising graphic organizer, it's got things to do with entire paragraphs, entire passages. I have an updated version of this where I've added a scene from a play, and also a, what's the word? A scene from a play. I can't think of the other word from. There's one more word, but I'll show it to you in another video. But it's not relevant to this one, so I was using this older one. And so I went ahead and wrote down the hashtag keywords of sentences 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. This is an entire paragraph. So what we would call the thumb, the topic sentence, and the other fingers, the specific supporting sentences, the ones that go with it. So we're going to eliminate one of them. And so I placed a red highlight on A, number 5. 9% chose that one. 9% chose sentence 7B. 33% chose 8, letter C, and half of the students, the answer that was correct, half of the students chose number 9. So let's see if there's a way I can teach you how to help your kids just be able to draw a hand on test day and be able to see how these relate. These little lines between each sentence are webs that connect the sentences together. Lily, Haley are twins. Lily has some health problems. So the real focus, the subject of this paragraph is going to be Lily. You would not eliminate this topic sentence because it is specific enough. And if you see, I made the monkey into an S. Lily, our subject, she can't walk or speak. She spends a lot of time in the hospital. That's a specific supporting sentence that would go with the paragraph. She says, which is Lily, has epilepsy, which is a brain condition causing seizures. Because we're still talking about Lily, we would not eliminate that one either because it's talking about our subject of the paragraph, Lily, and the problems that she has. It gets specific. GPS, get pretty specific. This is where lots of kids chose. Let's find out if there's it says there's different types of seizures. Many cause the brain to shake or to many cause the brain to shake or to jerk because seizures was the correct was about the topic of the previous sentence. These can web together, and as you can see, only 33% of the students chose that. Let me just double check. I'm going to pause the video just a second to make sure. Sorry about that. I wanted to double check to make sure that I was correct. So because the seizures is about the specific condition that Lily has, it would add support. So 33% said that it needed to be removed. So if we compare um, what the correct students, 50% chose other brain conditions, well, it doesn't mention seizures and that people are born with, well, people is not Lily. So instead of selecting that one to include, we're going to select it to eliminate. So the one that we should eliminate is letter D because it's vague. It's not about Lily or her brain seizures. So the correct answer to eliminate is going to be letter D. Right. So as you can see, these monkeys that I purchased are only $1 at the Dollar Tree. Green means good. They belong together. And we remove the one that doesn't belong. So we have one more question to look at this morning. I apologize for the inconvenience of the pausing. Just wanted to make sure that what I thought was the correct answer was in fact. So the second most missed question was number 3. It was where they need to take something that's too vague and make it more specific. And as you remember on my little rules acronym, my little friend, what did I do with him? Him over here. Oh, it's right here. Remember that we're going to take anything that's too vague and remove it and replace it with something that's more specific. Okay, so let's take a look at letter number 3. Seda, or person who wrote this fictitious passage, wants to begin her last paragraph, sentences 23 through 29, in a more effective way. Which sentence below can replace sentence 23? So we're only removing one sentence because in order to replace something, you have to remove it so that you can replace it and improve the focus of the story. So what they were asking you to do was come all the way to the bottom and say, I'm only going to be taking one word that's too vague, okay, one one sentence, but it's too vague. And so I need something in the context that changes vague to specific. The word it was too vague, so I need to replace it with something that was more specific. So if you look at the passage, so I can show it to you, I labeled it. Sadly, it was over. Okay. And when you read the previous passage, you find out that Daniel in the story got bitten by some ants. You can see that just in the previous paragraph. So because that's a negative thing, he experienced a fire attack. Sadly, it was over. What was over? Let's check it out. It was a beautiful sunny day and the park was filled with families enjoying a day together. So that what was over for him. Sadly, the party for him was over. So when you look at the answer choices, they all got the sadly, which part was true, so I can't eliminate anything. The other boys and girls in the park might get stung too. It was over. That has nothing to do with the content or the meaning of the sentence that we were talking about. We've got to figure out what was over, not infer something that's not even being asked about. Sadly, Daniel's fire hunt attack was finally over. Since sadly is a negative emotion, the fire attack being over is positive. So it would not be sad that the fire attack was over. It would be good. And so that's a contradictory statement. It's basically saying the opposite of what it's supposed to be. But over a third of the students in Texas chose an emotionally wrong sentence. Number 7, sadly, the party was going to be over soon for everyone there. No, the only person that got bit was Daniel. So we can't, again, assume the content. It was over, not for everybody, just for the person that it affects. Sadly, that was the end of the fun for Daniel and his family. That makes sense because he's the one that got bit. His family's not going to stay there and make him go to the hospital by himself. So the best answer would have been letter D. That would have changed vague to more specific. So what helped me was the revising graphic organizer for question number 5. For question number, let's see, for question number 3, mark that wrong, putting, sure, question number 3 was the one that we would, let me make sure I change that there. No, sorry. It was question number, let me make sure I mark these correctly for you. It was question number 6. Double checking right there. That was basically changing the order of the words. So question number 6 was the one about the order and revision. Question number 3 was changing what was over to a phrase or a sentence or a sequence that makes more sense based on the context, something that's more specific like we did. So the other thing that will help you is having a checklist, like we mentioned, and my corny little Mrs. PVC uh, to help you with the process of elimination. So those are the three most difficult revising questions. And I hope that you got some extra tools added to your toolbox to use. Please share or tag your writing teacher friends so that they can perhaps help the students who are struggling. I just want to remind you that if fourth graders did that poorly in April, it would mean that you teachers in fifth, sixth, or seventh grade could highly give this, it would be a good idea to give this practice, this test to your students because it's already released. They're never going to have to take this test in fifth, sixth, or seventh. You might check with your district first, but I wouldn't imagine that it would be a district plan to use a fourth grade revising test for fifth, sixth, and seventh graders. It might be used for third graders, but not for anybody above 4. So I hope that this was helpful to you. Click like on my YouTube page as well as my Facebook page and share or tag your writing teacher friends so that they can have a few more strategies to use as they're improving content. Thank you and bye.